How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. Oh man, this has been an interesting year of television and whatnot. Today we have to say goodbye to probably one of the more impactful shows in recent years, one of the more popular ones as well. That basically in the earliest stages of our show, I said this was one of the reasons why you should get this streaming platform. And if you haven't guessed already, we're talking about The Boys' epic season 5 finale, which is basically the last season to end this show. So after this one, the main line of The Boys is done. As always, everyone, since we're talking about this, we're recapping the season essentially. We'll give our spoiler free thoughts and rantings, and then we'll hop into spoilers in a minute or two. But yeah, so just a quick breakdown. This last season, again, the boys are on their last, rallying cry to try and stop Homelander, kill him off, and just stop whatever he's doing, just trying to a giant power grab after the last season. And yeah, we got to, I would say for this last season, and given that this show has been crazy beyond belief, I feel like this one was actually decently tame in certain instances. Because the last few seasons, we've seen some just gross stuff happen. I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of that this time around, so it's not bad, but I just feel like for everything going on, maybe because the reason why I feel like the show is so great is that it mimicked real life to the point where it's almost like a superhero version of SNL mixed with some Justice League or something gritty but hilarious. But I feel like, personal opinion, because the world is so crazy and this show has mimicked real life almost to a T, I feel like I just kind of got burnt out with this one. It had its ups and downs, but overall, I'm going to give this season a hard 4 out of 5. I think while it wasn't up to my expectations personally, and I feel like the finale itself, like the actual last episode, wrapped up a little too quickly, I still think this is one of the best shows on television. It has such a great cast, and it's crazy to see them start from like end of 2019 or early 2020 until now, 6-7 years later. So I still recommend this one given all its flaws, and especially this season. But yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. Bern, what did you think about this one as a whole, this last season?
Mm-hmm. I think with the way everything played out, I feel like the season sort of ended the series in sort of the most natural conclusion I think it was sort of leading up to, and both for good and bad. I think like you, I mirror your sentiments that there wasn't a lot of things that sort of took me by surprise this time around. Usually, and in particularly with the first 3 seasons, the show did a really good job of throwing a lot of curveballs at you and then bobbing when you think it's gonna weave. It did I felt like the writing in those first 3 seasons was really on point and being unpredictable, and also tying in a lot of these it's real world allegories, right? And I think it did a good job of doing that, keeping things fresh, keeping things exciting to where you didn't know how things were going to play out. And also doing a good job of making fun of the whole superhero satire. I feel like those early seasons came out around the time of the peak Marvel era, where it was really good material to pull from, to really pick at and make fun of. But with these last couple of seasons, I feel like it's been on a little bit of a downward trend. Although I didn't hate season 4 at all, I still thought it was really good. I think you can definitely see that we're kind of sort of dragging our feet a little bit in the whole Butcher and Boys versus Homelander storyline. Since these last couple of seasons have been primarily him. Season 2 we had Stormfront, season 3 we had Soldier Boy to throw things in in a little bit of a whack. But these last couple of seasons really honing in on just him, I think sort of showed a little bit more of the weaknesses of this series, and really doubling down on the whole Homelander being Trump allegory. let's just be real. I feel like these last couple of seasons have been pretty one note on that end in terms of its political commentary. I feel like it really just sort of like wrote itself into a corner where it was only focusing on these certain things, which I don't mind seeing commentary on, but when that's like the only well you pull from. It kind of runs dry, and it felt like that's kind of where I'm feeling in this last season. Although I wasn't disappointed, I didn't hate this season. It feels like okay, like we're just kind of like limping our way to the finish here, or kind of dragging ourselves to the end zone here, and that's a little bit disappointing because again of how exciting and fresh those first 3 seasons felt. To get to this point and feel like we're kind of just doing the same things over and over again. That was a little bit disappointing, but I think the character work here, for the boys, I think in terms of the writing of them, it didn't feel like any of them were sort of like betrayed in their characterizations up to this point. So I thought all of that, all the through lines of those stories and their individual characters, reached a pretty satisfying and natural endpoint. So I think they did right on that. But again, it's just the whole everything else that just kind of like felt a little bit more like used to feel so original, used to feel so exciting and new, and now it just kind of feels like we're just repeating the same beats in a sense. So yeah, although I didn't hate this season, I think there's a lot of chatter online thinking this season's bad. I don't think this season's bad. I just think it was a little bit unexciting in the way that things kind of like ended up going. And again, with a show that kind of kept you on your toes and wondering what's going to happen next, for me to feel like I knew how this season was going to end, and it ending in that way left me a little bit disappointed as a fan. But for me, I think this season is going to be a strong 3 out of 5. Still entertaining, still fun. I just think it feels like it's kind of run its course, and I'm a little bit glad that it's ending at this point, not trying to go on in this storyline. I mean, I know we're getting a bunch of spin-offs that I really don't care about, but at least this mainline story reached a conclusion that I feel was I feel like it was just the natural way that it was going in, and for that I'm satisfied that they didn't completely like betray anything they said it before, and they managed to keep it again true to the characters. So yeah, I will give it that.
Exactly, and I agree with you for the most part. We'll get into it when we do the spoilers. So yeah, hard 4 out of 5 for me, hard 3 out of 5 for Burn. Overall, still positive feelings on this season. So for those of you who happen to catch up and watch all of it, feel free to let us know what you thought about in the comments without spoiling it for everybody, of course. Or at least give like a spoiler alert warning if you comment, if you wanted to. But yeah, we're going to get into the spoilers part for this season, talk about some of our favorite aspects, maybe favorite scenes and moments. So if you haven't watched all of it and you don't want to get spoiled, come on back when you're done so that way you can join us in on that. But yeah, first off, I would say I definitely agree with you. Like, kind of like what I was saying, I feel like this show, it just didn't have that like crazy factor that we've seen, like especially in those first few seasons. And given, do I want to see a dude get ripped in half when the guy crawls into the urethra, or do I want to see a bunch of multiple men, tossing each other salad? Not really, but I feel like that's kind of the almost charming feature of this show, is that it does push these limits on kind of what's acceptable to see on TV, especially throwing in superheroes into it. It's almost like, man, I think that's one of the best parts of the show, is that like superheroes are just regular people with powers. Like they are just as devious, crooked, messed up as the rest of us. So I thought that was good, but didn't really get too much of that this season. But I think for the main cast of the boys, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, Huey, Butcher, and even Starlight, I think I do agree with you. I think it stayed pretty true to them, because even like the very last episode, the finale, like how it kind of shows like where everybody ends up, I think that was the best way to end it, and also the most natural way, because it's like, good, everybody kind of finally got a piece of the life that they wanted after all this was said and done. So I definitely agree with you on that. The only thing I would say that it was kind of true to character, but honestly it felt a little disappointing, was Homelander. Like how just batshit he was, but then when Butcher basically had him like, at the Oval Office, and how he's like begging, I was like, I thought that was a little too too pathetic even for him. I don't know if you felt that way with that moment at all, Burn.
No, I mean, I liked the moment because again, like it felt true to him. Where like, yeah, for all the bravado and the scariness of him, he really is just a sad little insecure man. So I like on that aspect, I didn't mind seeing him sort of like groveling like and begging for his life. So that seemed like true to him. I think the disappointing aspect of that situation was we never really got to see him sort of like cut loose, right? Like for all these seasons, it feels like it's been sort of building to that hallucination that he had, right? I forgot which season it was where he just lasers an entire crowd of people that are like against him, right?
That was the end of season 3 after the whole Soldier Boy stuff. So
right,
yeah.
right, right. Where that's right. Where he does end up killing one guy, and then people clap, and he's like, "Oh, okay." Like there's a group of people here that will accept anything I do, no matter as crazy as it is. So it felt like him getting the V1, and him sort of like again like slowly like starting to lose it. How people are not being believers, right? Like not being true believers. I thought there was going to come a moment where he was just going to go on a little bit of a rampage or something, or we were going to see sort of that pin get taken out, right? Where it's like, okay, now this Homelander doesn't care anymore, and he's just going to go crazy and kill a bunch of people. I feel like if we had gotten that, then the ending of him, would have been a little bit more satisfying. But yeah, just to not get sort of that smoking gun, right? Like the Chekhov's gun that it never went off. Where it's like we never got that moment of him truly like just like giving up on or like losing like his sanity. That felt a little bit disappointing to me because it felt like we were building up to that and we never got that sort of payoff for that side of his character of him just not caring anymore about people liking him or not.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I see what you mean with that. I mean, because we definitely saw him just like kill off everybody else essentially. Like when that's one thing I do like. Some of the deaths I think were very rewarding. Like Firecracker being one of them is very like bittersweet because she's like she knew what she was doing was wrong, but it was rewarding that she's still like you got because you kissed his ass for the last 2 seasons. Like what'd you expect was gonna happen, especially after some of the moments they had. But yeah, I felt like him groveling was just a little too like, come on, dude, don't be this pathetic. But like a lot of bullies when they lose, the higher ground, pun intended, I guess. It's like, yeah, dude, you're just pathetic. So I get what you mean with that, though.
Yeah, I think the one that was a little bit more disappointing for me was Sister Sage, and like everything that she had done and to get him up to this point, like in aiding him and helping him, for her to just kind of like walk off into the sunset. That felt a little bit like, oh, really? That's the way we're gonna resolve her character. I know like she kind of sort of like makes strides in like in making amends, kind of, and helping them with the whole giving Kimiko the Soldier Boy blast powers. But that was just kind of it. It was like, okay, like I feel like you really didn't do enough to like right your wrongs, so that just kind of felt a little bit unsatisfying to me.
I mean, the only thing I could say with that is I do agree with you. She definitely should have got her comeuppance more so than just losing her intelligence. But seeing her without the intelligence is like, man, you're not even worth it. Just get out. Like you're done with us. So I agree with that one. But I loved seeing the Deep finally get it at the end too after all these seasons. Like he came off like he's such a badass in the first one, and then I loved his degradation as the show went on. It was just, he was definitely like the one I'm like, dude, you're pathetic through and through, and you got what was coming to you in an epic fashion. Like when the giant squid, I thought it was gonna be a kraken for a second, but I'm like, nah, it's just a big ass squid just pierces his tentacle through him. I was like, justice right there. Thank you. The ocean prevails.
Yeah, I mean, I did like where his character ended up. His storyline is one that I do feel that it felt kind of just like a little bit stretched out. Because for these last couple of seasons, he's just been the same. He's kind of been the pathetic loser character. And while funny and while well acted by the actor, I think in terms of the writing, it was just that was one of those elements that just felt like it was a little bit repetitive. I was like, okay, we get it, dude. Like, I mean, his storyline hasn't been interesting since I think it was the second season where he's going through that whole like rehabilitation with the arranged marriage and stuff, and we get to see a little bit of a change in his character. Not that I think that all the characters need to go through like this big change. Him reverting back to his old ways does feel like in line with the character. It just felt like the things that they had him do these last couple of seasons didn't really. That was one of those things that didn't really feel new or interesting. It just kind of felt like we're going back to the same joke over and over again. How this guy just kind of sucks, while funny, that was one of those things where I wish we could have done something a little bit different or a little bit more with him to not just keep doing that same joke over and over again.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you made a great point that the first 3 seasons were the strongest ones we had. Not that last season was bad. Not even to say that this one was bad. But yeah, it definitely felt like after season 3, it was just on a steady decline because I felt like there were a lot more characters that we just did not get. Like, I know there's supposed to be like a whole X-Men group and that we never really got to see come to fruition. And I know we had Tech Knight last one, who's essentially like the Batman of this universe. I thought that was disappointing. We never got to see him suit up or anything like that and see how, like, he was already kind of a pathetic character even in the comics. I remember hearing about it, but I think that's maybe where these last 2 could have been improved, that we could have had more, quote unquote heroes come into the mix just to help give the boys something to go against. But instead we did get Sister Sage last season and Firecracker, but this one definitely there wasn't a lot of variety in the hero section. I mean, so I thought that was a little whatever, but like I said, I think this season had some of the best payoffs with the intimate moments, like, Mother's Milk kind of like letting loose because he's at that breaking point. Frenchie and Kimiko like kind of finally realizing what they want in life, and that was still to be with each other in some form or another. Huey, I think, was my favorite one still throughout this entire show because he evolved, but he still stayed true to his morals and his code. Like, he never gave that up. So I thought, like, him and Butcher, their last moments this episode, the finale, was definitely like, man, this is a good payoff to finally see these two start from where they started and then end with Butcher dying. Like, Butcher and Homelander had to go. That's just a given because they were two sides of the same coin, both piece of shit, human beings. So it's like, you know what? All this has to die with them. So, and I just love the moment with Huey where Butcher says, no matter all the crap I put you through and everything I've done to you, you're still you. Like, you never changed. And I think that was his proudest moments, like not killing Homelander, not any of that, but like I didn't kill Huey essentially. So I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything with in between like Homelander, Huey, and Butcher, I thought, that's one of those things that I felt like this is the natural conclusion to this. Definitely, it feels like Butcher was the one that was supposed to kill Homelander, from just based off of their history together, and it did feel like Butcher was also unfortunately one that also had to go for the reasons you listed. That he is sort of the opposite side to that coin, where he is just kind of driven by this violence and this rage, and really can't seem to operate outside of that. It seems like he's burnt all the bridges of having any semblance of a life outside of this mission, right? And we do see that at the end of this episode when he kind of turns to want to use the virus to kill everyone. He's just going scorched earth because he kind of knows nothing else and has nothing else to live for, since his and Ryan's relationship is basically non-existent now at this point for the reasons of everything that he's done in this season and especially last season. So I felt like, yeah, there's no way to repair that, and it feels like, yeah, that at this point it's just better for Butcher to kind of go. So and it being Huey to do it that also felt right, for everything that we've seen in these last few seasons of him basically, yeah, being his canary and him being the one to sort of pull him back from the more darker instincts that he has, if succeeding and failing and different points of that, but also like, yeah, like this feels like like this was what he was meant to do. Was to kind of put an end to this whole thing, break the cycle essentially of this violence that Butcher and Homelander had going for each other, and now Butcher was just gonna kind of basically just aim that at everybody else. So yeah, it was something that sort of needed to be done. So yeah, that all felt really really good, and that ending was very satisfying to me.
100%. And also, I want to give this season props with the female characters, particularly Kimiko and Starlight. I think, Erin Moriarty has killed it every season so far that she's been in. I didn't see Gen V season 2, so there's some things I want to go back and check out. But I loved her character after she left the Seven and really joined the boys at like in the middle of season 3, because I feel like that's where her character's really come out and proven herself. And it was just great to finally hear Karen Fukuhara finally voice herself in the show, because we haven't really seen it. Like, I mean, because she's been a mute the entire season, or the entire show in general. But given that we did get that musical episode, I think season 3, I believe. I don't remember. There was or maybe it was last one. I have to go back and check. But I just thought that they were definitely crucial characters in this entire plot. Whether it's trying to nuke Homelander and get rid of his powers, or leading a resistance against his regime. I thought I just thought they were great, and want to give a shout out. I think Kripke did a pretty good job of not just making them just there. You know what I mean? Or not, like, he didn't do them enough. Like he didn't do them wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, on the Starlight front, yeah, I did like how they kind of gave her the sort of like hero arc that we see in a lot of like other like superhero stories, where she's having to try to figure out like how to both love Huey and like protect him, but also be at war. Like, how does she do both these things? How does she protect the person she loves, and also how does she like go against this great evil that she's fighting against? So I really did like that storyline of her character, like her like being afraid to lose him, and how that was sort of influencing her decisions. And when she went back to go talk to her dad after all these years, that was a really great moment for her. So I did really like that. And yeah, like Huey, I like how she's sort of the North Star or like the heart of this series, where they're the true heroes, and they embody all those elements of the classical hero that we see in this messed up world that's flipped the whole hero thing on its head. I did like how they did that. And yeah, on the Kimiko front, I did think that it was okay. I think it was a little bit. The joke didn't land for me of her like being like a porn addict, basically. Everything that they had her say, I was just like, okay, like, we have finally Karen Fukuhara talking, and this is what you're having her say. I guess that doesn't really work for me. And the whole love story between her and Frenchie, I thought that was fairly interesting for the most part. I felt like one of those things that we could have like basically had like a while back, but because they couldn't really communicate with each other that well, they were kind of like just digging from that well again. Yeah, with the whole Kimiko aspect, I'm not as much in love with it as you are, but I think she was okay in this season. It's one of those elements where I feel like they could have done more with her than they didn't, and I feel a little bit disappointed in that.
That's very fair. I definitely get what you mean, though. But yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to say about this season. But I guess for me, as a whole, I think this show still did a great job of just being a satire on not only the superhero genre, but I thought it was great just political commentary as well. This season, I felt like, again, it hit very close to home, even when they were doing like the golden statue thing, how the writers and Kripke were like, yeah, we did not plan on that happening in real life or even get thrown out in real life, so that took that momentum. But I'm like, I think it's just surreal. You guys are like the Simpsons, predicting the future in a way. I guess my question to you, what did you think of this show as a whole? Did this last season kill it for you in any way, kind of like what Game of Thrones that final season did for that show? Or do you think overall you're still pretty satisfied with what we got?
I think my feelings in this season can kind of be like summed up on like how I felt about Soldier Boy this season. it was just all over the place and a little bit inconsistent. His character really frustrated me. As much as I love Jensen Ackles, the lines that they had him say, his acting was all really good. It's like I think he had some of the funniest lines in this the few seasons that we've had with him, and in particular this one. So like this whole season, there were good moments in there. It's just that his character was sort of flip flopping in motivations. Again, sort of like ties into the whole inconsistency that I feel with this season as a whole, where like he's like on one side feeling about Homelander, and then the next moment he's like feeling this other way about Homelander. Giving him the V1 and stuff. It's like after him not really liking him for the past season, so it just felt like those elements were like, yeah, that kind of like sort of embodies like my feeling where it's like, oh, like you didn't, it feels like you didn't know which way you wanted to go with certain aspects of the story, and it felt like you just kind of went the direction that felt a little bit predictable. Yeah, it was like one of those things where it's just, I don't know, I didn't hate it, but it just felt like, oh, we're just kind of making it up as we go along, and it doesn't feel as like planned out, and it doesn't feel as like, again, like as interesting or exciting or like unpredictable as before. In this sense, it was unpredictable in the worst way, because it was like, oh, okay, like this character just feels inconsistent. This part of the story just feels inconsistent, not because of like you were like fainting one way and went another way. It just felt like you were just kind of going in all directions. So yeah, that's kind of my feelings on that.
That's fair. I definitely agree with you. This last season, it felt I feel like it wrapped itself a little too quickly. But then I feel also like we could have ended this all last season, if we really wanted to, just because it felt a little drawn out. But then they were like rushing to like finish this. So because I feel like we didn't get a payoff, like you said, with Sister Sage and how she's just able to walk away in the sunset, and also the characters from Gen V, especially because they're not getting a season 3. So from what I understand is season 2 was supposed to bleed into this more, and then this was kind of supposed to tee that off, but instead we're going to get the Vought Rising prequel, which is essentially just, the early racist white superheroes from the very first generation. So not sure if I'm going to really looking towards that. I do love Jensen Ackles though. He was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't mind seeing him in a younger Soldier Boy, but at this point I'm just like, what's going to be the point? We kind of already saw all this play out, so I just don't feel like it was a great way. I just feel like, yeah, this season did not do a good job of wrapping everything up completely.
Yeah, it feels like they sort of kind of handcuffed themselves by really leaning far into the commentary of Trumpism and MAGA politics and religion and all that stuff, where it feels like they've kind of not done the same or like been up to the same level with the whole superhero satire aspect of it, and it feels like because of that they're kind of becoming the thing that they used to make fun of, especially now with the announcement of all the different spin-offs that they're doing, and having this sort of like connected universe that they kind of have to service with the Gen V characters, and then now sort of like fridging Soldier Boy and saving him for whatever story we're going to get in his spin-off. Again, it just feels like one of those things where, like now you're kind of becoming the thing that you're making fun of, or were making fun of, up until the point where you just really just hard focused on doing the whole social political commentary, which I don't mind, but it's like, again, if that's all you're doing, it gets old fast, and yeah, that's why I think these last couple of seasons just felt very samey, because that's kind of all they've been doing on that aspect of it. And yeah, when art imitates life, it gets a little bit repetitive in seeing the things in real life and in seeing things in the show. It's just like, okay, well, I can just turn on the news and see similar things. So yeah, it just becomes like, okay, then why am I watching this show? What other interesting things are you giving me? And like we kind of both said, we didn't feel like there wasn't that much this time around.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I feel like the last 2 seasons have hit a little too close to home with everything going on in the real world. So especially this one, because this is actually going on during this one, because the last one I want to say was 2024. So yeah, the good thing I will say, kind of like what I was alluding to in my question earlier, is that I don't feel like this season ruined the show for me like some other finales have done. Because I would say the finales in The Boys have consistently been some of the better ones of more shows. Like, there's always those series, particularly in like the Disney Plus ones, excluding Daredevil Born Again, where the finales were just garbage. And but this one didn't disappoint, and I think this show ended on as good of a note as it can for however long it went. Overall, I would give the entire show a 4 out of 5, and I would definitely recommend it to everybody. I just wish this one did go out with a bang a little bit more so, like just more ridiculous as it should have been. But like, what would you have to, given with everything that we talked about for this one, I got really nothing else to comment on. How would you rate the show as a whole, Bernie?
Yeah, I mean the series as a whole, I think, thinking back on our reviews for the previous seasons, the first three I'm pretty sure we gave 5 out of 5s to all of those, and the last one I think was a 4 probably for me, and this one being a 3. So I think this would fall around the same, like a 4 out of 5. I didn't hate this last season. This season didn't really feel like morbidly disappointing, like you mentioned others season like finales have felt, where it just feels like okay, we just kind of threw everything away. This didn't do that. It didn't just throw everything away again. It ended in a predictable fashion, but it's a fashion where it's like, okay, that makes sense. Just by being predictable, it's like, all right, we kind of saw the sort of stepping stones that this was kind of like leading to. So in that aspect, it didn't just like completely like sweep the table and just like throw everything out and like just completely betray these characters or the story. It ended at its natural point, and I felt like although it is a little bit underwhelming, I don't think it sort of disgraced the legacy of the show in any way. So yeah, overall I think this show is still pretty strong, in particular for those first 3 seasons. So yeah, to give it anything less than a 4 out of 5 doesn't feel right.
That's fair. Yeah, like I said, I think this is still one of the better shows on television, especially if you're a DC Marvel fan or Invincible fan, Image Comics, and you want something different. This is gonna help scratch that itch. But yeah, like I said, I got nothing else. Burn, is there anything that you want to bring to the table? You want to comment on? Anything in particular?
I'm not excited for any of the spin-off shows. I don't want to like end this on a dour note, but yeah, I mean, for me, this story was, Butcher and the boys, trying to take on the Seven. That was the element that I cared about. I cared about this story. I cared about these characters. The universe, the IP as a whole is something that I'm not really like invested in on that aspect. Gen V was kind of one of those things that was kind of hard to get into because of those reasons. So hearing that we got more things coming up it's got a little bit of an uphill battle for me personally. But this was a story I cared about. This story has ended, and I feel satisfied with that. So if we're probably gonna have to watch them for reviews, but hopefully those shows do something along the lines of the first 3 seasons and giving me something exciting, or making this like taking a different approach to this like superhero stories that they're going to be telling, and make it feel fresh and new for me to like want to keep watching it. That's my
100%.
hope, at least.
Oh no, I agree I'm there with you, Bernie. Am I looking forward to any of the other spinoffs? Not really, but hey, Bern and I are gonna be there to review them, so y'all can keep joining us as we dissect The Boys and give our opinions on that. But until next time, everybody, thank you for tuning in all the years with The Boys with us. Now that show's ended, we still got a lot more to review, especially this year. So as always, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.